Surviving abuse from a narcissist can leave deep emotional scars. One typical behavior observed in survivors is the tendency to over-apologize.
I'm sorry.
This habit is not merely a reflection of politeness or a desire to maintain harmony. It is a complex response shaped by the dynamics of narcissistic abuse. Here are 7 reasons why those abused by narcissists tend to over-apologize. Let's talk about this first one. Conditioned guilt. Have you ever wondered why people abused by narcissists apologize so much? It's not just about being polite. Narcissists are experts at manipulation. They often shift blame onto their victims to avoid taking responsibility. This constant gaslighting messes with a person's mind. Victims start to feel responsible for every conflict, even when it's not their fault. Over time, this blame game changes how they think. They become conditioned to apologize to avoid criticism. It's like a reflex. They say sorry to stop the narcissist from getting angry.
No, it's fine, I promise, it's fine.
This behavior is deeply ingrained because of the constant guilt trips. Imagine feeling guilty all the time, even when you did nothing wrong. That's what it's like for them. They apologize to try to keep the peace. It's a way to protect themselves from more emotional pain. This habit doesn't go away easily. It's a survival mechanism. Understanding this helps us see why they over-apologize. It's not about weakness. It's about surviving in a toxic environment. Knowing this, we can support them better. Helping them break this cycle is crucial. Next, the desire to avoid conflict. Ever notice how some people apologize to avoid arguments? Especially those who've dealt with narcissists? Conflict with a narcissist can be incredibly intense and distressing. Survivors figure out that saying sorry, even when they're not at fault, diffuses tension. It's a quick way to avoid explosive arguments. Over time, this becomes second nature. They learn to apologize preemptively. It's not that they're guilty, but they're trying to keep the peace. This habit gets deeply ingrained. It's a survival mechanism. Imagine constantly walking on eggshells. You'd do anything to avoid a blow-up, right? For these survivors, apologizing feels safer. It's a way to protect themselves from emotional outbursts. They've been conditioned to think that a quick apology can prevent a bigger problem. This habit sticks with them, even in other relationships. It's a tough cycle to break. Understanding this helps us see why they apologize so much. It's about avoiding conflict and staying safe. Number 3, you might have guessed this, low self-esteem. Have you ever met someone who apologizes all the time because they don't feel good about themselves? That often happens to people who have been abused by narcissists. Narcissistic abuse involves constant belittlement and devaluation. This really wears down a person's self-esteem. They start to feel like they're not worth much. With this low self-esteem, they feel flawed. They think they deserve the blame for everything that goes wrong. This leads them to apologize a lot. They say sorry to compensate for these perceived inadequacies. It's like they're trying to make up for feeling not good enough. Imagine feeling like you can't do anything right. That's how these survivors feel. They apologize to try to make things better. It's a way to cope with their diminished sense of self-worth. This habit is hard to break. Understanding this can help us see why they over-apologize. It's not just about being polite. It's about trying to survive with low self-esteem. Supporting them means helping them rebuild their self-worth. Now let's talk about this exciting reason, the fear of rejection. Have you ever noticed how some people apologize a lot because they fear being rejected? This is especially common in those who have dealt with narcissists. Narcissists are unpredictable, swinging between charm and approval to sudden rejection and punishment. This roller coaster behavior confuses and scares their victims. Survivors start to over-apologize. They do this to secure the narcissist's approval. They hope it will prevent sudden rejection or punishment. This fear of being abandoned is deeply ingrained. It's like they're always trying to keep the narcissist happy to avoid the next blow-up. Imagine constantly fearing that someone will reject you. It's exhausting. For these survivors, apologizing seems like a way to prevent that. They've been conditioned to think that saying sorry can keep them safe. This habit sticks with them even in other relationships. They apologize not because they're always wrong, but because they fear rejection. Understanding this can help us see why they act this way. It's not just about being polite, it's about trying to avoid the pain of rejection. Supporting them means helping them feel secure and valued. Number 5, seeking validation. Ever wondered why some people apologize excessively, even when it seems unnecessary? This behavior is particularly common in individuals who have endured abuse from narcissists. Narcissists manipulate their victims, often making them feel dependent on validation. Apologizing becomes a way for survivors to seek approval from their abuser. They hope that by expressing remorse, they might receive a fleeting moment of positive acknowledgement. This need for validation stems from the emotional dependency cultivated by the narcissist. Survivors crave reassurance, even if it's temporary, because it momentarily eases the constant tension and fear of disapproval. Living with a narcissist creates an environment where every action is scrutinized and judged. Apologizing becomes a reflexive response to try to avoid conflict and gain acceptance. Over time, this behavior becomes deeply ingrained as a means of self-preservation. Imagine constantly feeling like your actions aren't good enough. That's the reality for survivors of narcissistic abuse. They apologize not just out of guilt, but as a desperate attempt to secure some semblance of approval and validation. Understanding this mindset helps us see why over-apologizing is a coping mechanism. It's not just about being polite or admitting fault. It's about surviving in a toxic dynamic. Supporting survivors means helping them rebuild their self-worth and find validation from within rather than seeking it from their abuser. Let's talk about number 6, internalized criticism. Ever wondered why some people are overly critical of themselves, always apologizing? This is a common trait in individuals who have survived narcissistic abuse. Living with a narcissist means enduring constant criticism and unrealistic expectations. The narcissist's relentless reproaches become ingrained in the survivor's mind. Over time, survivors internalize this criticism. They start to believe the negative things said about them. They become their own harshest judges, constantly apologizing to themselves and others. It's like they hear the narcissist's voice in their head, criticizing their every move. Imagine feeling like you can never measure up. That's the reality for survivors of narcissistic abuse. They apologize not because they're always wrong, but because they've internalized this harsh self-judgment. It's a way to cope with the constant criticism they endure. And then the last one, trauma response. Have you noticed how some people are overly critical of themselves and always say sorry? This tendency often stems from surviving narcissistic abuse. Living with a narcissist means enduring constant criticism and impossibly high expectations. The narcissist's relentless reproaches become deeply embedded in the survivor's psyche. As time passes, survivors internalize this criticism. They start believing the negative narratives spun by the narcissist. They become their own harshest critics, frequently apologizing to themselves and others. It's as if they hear the narcissist's voice in their mind, critiquing every action. Imagine feeling like you can never meet expectations. This is the harsh reality for survivors of narcissistic abuse. Their apologies aren't always about admitting fault. They're a coping mechanism against relentless criticism. So how to break the cycle? Understanding the reasons behind over-apologizing is the first step toward healing. Survivors of narcissistic abuse can benefit from the following strategies. Therapy. Professional counseling can help address the deep-seated issues stemming from abuse, offering tools to rebuild self-esteem and establish healthy boundaries. Self-awareness. Recognizing the tendency to over-apologize and understanding its roots can empower survivors to change this behavior. Self-compassion. Learning to be kind to oneself and acknowledging that they are not to blame for the abuse can help in reducing the urge to apologize unnecessarily. Building support networks. Surrounding oneself with supportive and understanding individuals can provide a sense of safety and validation, helping to diminish the reliance on apologies for reassurance. Recovering from narcissistic abuse is a challenging journey, but with time and support, survivors can reclaim their sense of self-worth and break free from the cycle of over-apologizing.